Want to learn how to get a business analyst job? What a business analyst job description is in the first place, business analyst salary, business analyst interview questions, how to put together a business analyst resume, and overall how to become a business analyst. So what is a business analyst? We talked previously during one of our ethics videos about the importance of having skills and having difficult business conversations. And I mentioned in that video that I talked to you more in a deep dive video about specific tips that you could use to have difficult business conversations. So first and foremost, having difficult business conversations is part of being a business analyst. It will eventually come up, maybe not at the beginning of your career as you're mentored by someone else who takes on those discussions as the more senior person. But as you develop through your business analyst career, you're going to have difficult conversations with your stakeholders regarding differences in opinion about scope and budget, financial implications, timeline implications, and all these sorts of things. So here are the top 10 tips that you can use to effectively have difficult conversations with your customers. And I usually say stick all the way through the video to number 10 and you might be surprised. But honestly, I think number 9 is a little more surprising. So stick with me at least until then, and let's see what you think about number 9 on this list. So the first tip we have about having difficult business conversations is making sure you prepare and plan. Before even initiating the conversation, days, maybe weeks before, take the time to prepare and plan out all your talking points so that you can discuss clearly and in a coherent manner, much like I'm doing now on this particular video, because I planned my script for this particular video with your person or your stakeholder, and so they feel like you put in the time and effort to come to them with coherent thoughts rather than blaming or even trying to take something in a certain direction without any evidence to do so. You want to clarify your purpose and your objectives of the conversation, identify your key issues that you have that you want to discuss with them, gather any necessary information that you'll need as evidence for that, and then bring that to the discussion. So 3 ways that you can actually do this. One is clarify your purpose. So you want to clearly define your objective for the conversation to yourself before you even have the conversation. You want to ask yourself what you want to achieve and what outcome you're seeking. So these hard business conversations, and even the easy ones, should be outcome-based. You don't want to approach a conversation with a stakeholder just to talk chit-chat. You want an outcome-based conversation. So maybe the small talk at the beginning as a friendly opener, but you need to have your goal or objective in mind. Second point is identifying key issues. So determining specific points or concerns that you have that you know you want to touch on before the conversation ends. Interviews are like this too. If you're interviewing somebody for a job, which I've done a lot of in my career, and maybe you have as well, you'll have a bulleted script of things you want to ask and certain levels of responses that you're expecting to get if you want to offer somebody a job. Same thing, having difficult discussions, which interviews can be difficult, with your stakeholders. You want to have your bulleted set of key points to cover and make sure that you cover them all before the discussion ends. And then you want to gather your information, any evidence that you have, especially documentation. If you have emails or other signed off design documents or requirements documents, you want to bring those to the discussion so that you can remind your stakeholder what was discussed previously. Many times they don't have any malicious intent. They're not trying to skirt around anything. They just don't remember. So if you come with documentation, everybody leaves happier. The second top tip for having difficult discussions with your customers are choosing the right time and place. Make it a quiet place. Maybe call them directly. Don't call them out in a meeting in front of lots of people. Whether it's in person or over the phone, find a private and quiet space where both parties are comfortable talking about their concerns and hopefully meeting in the middle for a solution that works well for everybody. Make sure you avoid distractions and make sure you have sufficient time for the call. As I've said in previous videos, I usually book meetings or calls for an hour. If they don't take that long, wonderful. If they do, then we have plenty of time to talk through all of the required details. 2 main points in a little bit more detail. One is timing. So finding a time where both parties can focus on the conversation without other distractions. You don't want to multitask because really you're just single tasking on the wrong task. There is no multitasking, and you want to avoid scheduling the discussion during busy parts of your day. So even if this hour fits between 2 other meetings, you have to quickly change your mindset around from the previous meeting and the meeting after, which may make it difficult to focus on this particular topic. Leave a little bit of buffer in between so you can have the discussion calmly and get all of the points out with confidence and without any conflict, hopefully. So if you've stuck with me this far through the video, I hope you're getting some great value and want to be notified every time I drop the next piece of training in this series. Go ahead and subscribe to How to Be a Business Analyst below and click that bell button for all notifications. Once you've done that, drop me a comment in the comments below letting me know that you subscribed, and I'll go ahead and try to answer all of those comments personally. Top tip number 3 for having difficult discussions is being clear and specific. So clearly articulate your concerns. Don't skirt around the issue. Don't add a lot of filler. Get right to the point. Professionally, of course, but get right to the point so that the stakeholder with whom you're speaking can evaluate what you're saying, maybe give any counter arguments they have, and you have a clear and direct path to resolution that way. You want to be clear and direct and concise. Don't over talk. Give enough detail so that everyone's on the same page, but be concise and direct, and don't be ambiguous. Try to say things in a very precise way so they can't be misinterpreted. And the other thing I would say there is provide specific examples whenever you can have them. So as a business analyst manager these days, when folks come to me with complaints about people on my team, I always require specific examples. So I'm not going to go talk to somebody about how they may have done something better without a specific example, because frankly, they're going to ask me for it, right? If this happened to you, you would want to know, well, where specifically did I go wrong so that I can envision that situation in my mind and think about what I could have done differently. So providing specific examples, always a good idea. If you can illustrate with design documents visually, even better, but always come with specific examples for these discussions. The 4th top tip for having difficult business discussions is active listening. And if you're interested in this topic, I have a deep dive coming on this as well, on all of the detailed ways that you can employ active listening. And I think I have about 20 of them. So I think you're going to really enjoy that detailed guidance on how to learn and practice active listening. It is something that requires practice and diligence and a concerted effort. And so active listening means paraphrasing back to people what they're saying, empathizing with them, giving them your undivided attention. So you don't want to be thinking about what you are going to say next in response. You want to be listening to everything they say now. And if that causes you a pause after they're done, so be it. The recipient of your communication will appreciate that you're pausing because you're trying to digest what they just said, because it's so important to you that you want to respond in a relevant way. So I know this is counterintuitive to some folks. We feel like we need to be talking all the time and quick to react, but I've tried to teach folks over the years that silence is golden. If you're using silence for a positive reason, and even if the person prompts you and says, "Did you hear me?" and you have to answer, "Yes, I'm thinking through everything that you've said," they're really going to appreciate that. So again, if you want to learn about specific, detailed top tips, about 20 of them, on how to employ active listening properly, I have a couple of deep dive videos coming on those in the near future. Tip number 5 about how to have difficult business conversations is maintaining a professional and respectful attitude. And so you want to keep your tone professional, monotone but friendly, right? So not monotone like a computer would speak, but not overly emotional. So even if your emotions are running high, you want to take a deep breath before you get into the call and try to get that in check before you're talking to the person. You don't want to provide any personal attacks. This is a situation that's happening that's irking you, not a person, right? So we don't want to assume that the person's unwilling to compromise. And many times they are willing to compromise if they have all the facts and all the perspectives from different people working together on the project. So you want to talk to them in a way that avoids conflict or blaming, and just say, here's the situation and here's why I feel like it's not optimal. Do you feel like we can meet in the middle in these particular 3 ways? And most people will want to work with you. And then the other thing I would say there is focus on using I statements. I, not I, but I, me statements when you are communicating the difficult business conversation with this person. I feel like this is what's happening. I feel like this impacts me in this particular way. So you want it to be focused on you, not on them, and that removes the accusation aspect of the discussion. Hey, so one more quick tip for you. If you're thinking, hey, I have a great career too where I can share all these insights on the internet. How do I do that? I have a couple great links for you in the description below. One is Make Money Matt, who teaches how to monetize your skills and abilities online better than almost anybody I've found. And the second one is Teachable, a platform where you can create your very own online courses. Check the links out in the description below. Top tip number 6 on having difficult business discussions is practicing empathy. So you want to be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes and think through what they may be going through and what their perspective is in this particular situation, rather than focusing just on your own. So for example, in my own household, my wife often gives me little critiques on what I may be wearing or what have you. And her defense to that is, well, I would want you to tell me if I did something like that. And my counter argument is always, but we're not talking about you. You should treat me the way you think I would best respond to, not the way you would best respond to, because this is focused on me right now, right? Just like I would do with her. If I'm asking her to change something, I would want to deliver that information in the way that best resonates with her, not that best resonates with me, because that's ridiculous. So practicing empathy and getting in the other person's shoes and trying to think through what they may be thinking at the time will make the difficult discussion run much more smoothly, in my opinion. And the second point to that is you want to acknowledge the other person's feelings. So you want to show that you understand and empathize with their feelings because you've placed yourself in their shoes. If the customer says, we've paid a lot of money for this solution and I feel like the timeline is growing and growing and growing and it's getting away from us, and I had promised my boss we would have it done this quarter, and I have a potential promotion hanging in the balance for me, and it's not going to look good if we don't meet that. You want to not ignore that the person even said this, even if it's somewhat outside of your control, whether they get a promotion. You want to tell them, I fully understand that this is making you frustrated or anxious in terms of your potential promotion. Let's see what we can do to crash this timeline a bit so we can get you closer to your original promises to your boss. And the person you're speaking with is going to have a positive reaction to this because they will appreciate that you're putting yourself in their shoes and empathizing with what they're going through rather than just trying to solve the technical problem. Tip number 7 in having difficult business discussions is seeking a win-win situation for everybody. So you want to be able to compromise, and instead of approaching the situation with a win or lose mindset, like who wins and who loses, strive for situations where both of you win in certain ways. So maybe we give up a little bit of revenue to get the customer a little closer to their time frame expectations, and everybody sort of wins because nobody gave up everything and everybody gained a little bit. So you want to be able to meet in the middle, negotiate, and provide win-win situations for everybody. You want to look for common ground and explore potential solutions that address the concerns of both parties. So you want to be open to compromise and different approaches that you may not have thought of. This happens with me all the time. We have data automation principles that we use in our solution to our customers that have certain restrictions around them. We're only going to automate this bit of scope. And when the customer asked for automation of this bit of scope, we said, well, here are the reasons why. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you come with some evidence and communicate it in a professional way. Here are the reasons why we typically stick to these restrictions. And the customer actually told me a bunch of stuff I never thought of before that made total sense. They said, we understand those restrictions, and we understand the law of diminishing returns if we ask you to automate this much more scope, but the input into that process that we have to create is much easier if we go with the larger scope than if we go with the smaller scope, because then we would have to go into our upstream process and filter a bunch of stuff out that we won't send to you. And all that made wonderful sense. So we ended up, even though it cost them a lot to implement what they wanted to implement, they were happy because we were able to fulfill their wishes in terms of what's easier for them to create on their end. So in this sense, you want to also be open to collaboration and brainstorming solutions together. Sometimes your customers, as in this example, know things that you just haven't thought to try to implement before. So as I go through providing all this detailed knowledge for you on this channel based on my years of experience, I didn't want all these videos scattered all around to get away from you, so I decided to create a mini course that provides a checklist of 10 essential skills any aspiring business analyst needs to know, and I decided to provide it to you for free. So check the description below on 10 essential skills any aspiring business analyst needs to know. Click that link in the description below and grab your free digital download. Enjoy. Tip number 8 for having difficult discussions in business is staying solution-oriented. So you don't want to focus so much on the problem, so much as how we're going to solve this problem together. So keep the conversation focused on finding solutions and resolving the issues at hand. Avoid getting caught up in personal disagreements or the back and forth of who caused the problem. We're here now to solve it. You want to have a problem-solving mindset that takes what we have available to us today and how we can piece that together into a solution, and a future-looking mindset to say, let's move forward. Looking backward isn't going to help us now. Let's move forward and fix the problem at hand, and maybe afterward we do what's called a post-mortem to look backward and see what went wrong so that we can begin the right way on the next project or with the next customer. Tip number 9, and I think it's the top tip of the whole video in terms of having difficult business conversations, and I told you if you stuck through this far in the video, you might be a little bit surprised, and that is managing your emotions. So it's not even a technical skill, it's just trying to get your emotions on check. Though we often approach these discussions with something we're very passionate about, we've had 10 years experience on this product and methodology, and we know this is the right way to do it, but why doesn't this customer understand or want to go down our path? We have to remember, they're paying for a solution, right? So they have a vested interest in making it work well for all their end users, and so should we. So we want to keep our emotions in check, and the way we do that is 2 ways. One is emotional self-awareness. You may not even know that you're being loud or emotional or accusatory, so maybe you want to practice your delivery in front of a colleague or a manager or a peer even, to recognize your own emotions in the delivery of this particular content or this particular difficult situation, so you can take steps to mitigate it when you do it for real in prime time with the customer. And even in the moment when you're talking with the customer, taking moments of self-regulation can be helpful. Again, people are so often afraid of silence. They're afraid of taking a deep breath or taking a 10 count to compose yourself so that you respond in a professional and value-added way instead of a way that may be detrimental to the conversation. All of this is perfectly fine. It's going to be difficult for you at first if you've never done it, but I tell you, after you get used to it, you're empowered by silence. Someone may come at you in a passionate way, and if you just take a few seconds to think about it, again, even if they're prompting you with, "Did you hear me?" and you answer with, "Yes, I'm thinking through step by step everything you've said so that I can respond to you in a way that would be meaningful." They'll definitely appreciate something like that. And then the second part would be, after you've used these techniques to calm down, respond with composure. You want to be, as a business analyst, we're the face to many different other parts of our organization and organizations externally. You want to respond with professionalism, composure, and measured confidence in a way that brings everybody to a solution together. We want to be respectful and measured and diffuse any tensions that are in the room and help the customer understand that we're there for their benefit and to help them reach a positive outcome. And then top tip number 10, that's a tongue twister, for how to have a difficult business conversation is following up and documenting. So let's write down and talk about everything we discussed today. I'll follow up with you in a couple of days to make sure we're still on the same page and that the solutions we discussed still work for you after maybe you've had some discussions internally with your leadership, and we move forward in a positive direction together from there. So again, one of the strengths of a business analyst, not only customer-facing skills, but the ability to document and immortalize those things in a very specific and precise manner and call back on those documents when we have any potential conflicts in our approaches or our understanding of the solution that will meet the given business requirements. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope you got a lot out of this video that will drive you forward in having effective, difficult business communications.